A vocal advocate for diversity and inclusion, Sandy is the chairman of the board for a nonprofit organization, Girls in Tech, and an adjunct professor at Carnegie Mellon, Silicon Valley. Sandy is also a founder and CEO at Silicon Blitz and has helped many startups and companies with technology, cognitive diversity, and innovation. Sandy, welcome to the Diversity and Inclusion track at TiEcon 2021.
And thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to join TiEcon again, one of my very favorite groups. And what I'd like to do today is to share a little presentation around diversity. So I will shift over to my presentation now just for a moment. Okay, so here we go. So I was asked to share a little bit about how diversity drives innovation and business outcomes and some of the best practice cases from Amazon Web Services. I know I won't have time to answer questions, so I have included on the screen my Twitter handle, Sandy_Carter. I'd love tweets coming in, and I would love to be connected with you on LinkedIn as well. So let me go ahead and get started. And I love to start with this crisis cake because everybody talks about what we've been going through, and it's been such an interesting time, right, with such impact. And what we like to talk about is the pandemic. But if you really think about it, it's not just the pandemic that we've been undergoing, but really a set of compounding issues, from climate issues to racial and civil unrest to what's going on today in the world with the pandemic overall. So we're all experiencing this. I hope that you're all doing safe and that you're healthy in your virtual worlds. But just know that everybody is undergoing a once in a, maybe not even lifetime, once in a 100-year time frame of what we're undergoing today. And so because of that, one of the things that I was able to do is to reach out to my partners and customers in something that I consider our virtual roadshow. Usually I go out and I visit people everywhere and across the world. But because I couldn't do that, I decided to do a virtual roadshow. So I did 100 partners in 100 days. I visited partners in Asia Pacific, did it on their time zone, in Europe and in the US, as well as Latin America and Canada. And one of the things that I found was that not only was everybody interested in what we were doing with COVID, how we were managing that, about our technology, of course, but everybody was really interested in how we were handling ID&E. And for us, IDE is about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So one of the things we paused and we talked about in that 100 by 100 day partner tour was really around how diversity helps to drive innovation, especially in times like we're experiencing today, where we've got climate things, racial things, social unrest, pandemics occurring across the world. Diversity has been proven to help companies and countries and governments around the world really come through. This is just one study from McKinsey that showed if you have a diverse team, and this means a diverse team in the way that you think, not just men and women, that you can drive more market segment share and you're more likely to capture a new market. Now, I'll tell you a really interesting story. At Amazon, we look at innovations by teams, and one of the teams wasn't really innovating. But if you looked at the team was very diverse. Outside, they looked like they were a very diverse team. But it turns out that this entire team came from one university, a university that had trained them, that had looked at their frameworks. And so when we're talking about diversity, it's not just Black, brown, female, male, military, non-military. It's also about the way that you think. You're looking for diversity of thought. And so after I finished a lot of these, this 100 by 100 day roadshow, I created a presentation that showed best practices from Amazon on ID&E, inclusion, diversity, and equity. Now, these are my personal examples and my personal stories. The breadth of Amazon and what we do to impact all of these is so much broader, but I would like to share these because I've personally experienced these. So what I thought I would do today is walk you through 4 examples of how we've programatized the work that we're doing on inclusion, diversity, and equity. The first example I'm going to give you is Women at. The second is around our startup support. And we just had another announcement today, so I'll talk to it. I don't have a slide on it. Our Girls in Tech partnership and why we chose to do that. And then I want to close with our new program called Think Big for Small Business, which is now a program for our partners around diversity. It's the first ever in the industry for a program in this stage. So let me talk first about Women at. And Women at Amazon is really an internal diversity element to help us with that inclusion and equity, and as well, so, that diversity element that exists. Our Women at Amazon movement really embraces women coming together around different needs. So we have Women at EC2. So if you know Amazon, one of our big services is EC2. We have Women at Security that look at security across the board. We even have Women at Seattle, nomenclature for a city. And so what this enables us to do internally is to have some of those tough discussions. So when some of the social unrest and the Asian hate started, we were able to get together, Women at Asia, with others and have that support network and really talk about different areas. I think it's really important for any company to not just focus externally, but to also really turn your intentions internally, what you're doing for your employees themselves. This is just one of our initiatives. I actually started the Women at EC2 group. I participate in the Women at Amazon and the Women at Seattle groups as well. And again, it's inspiring to me, it's encouraging to me, and it helps us to get to some of that straight talk. The second area that I wanted to share with you today was really around startups and startup communities. I know that Ti is such a supporter of startups, and we have really reached out to say, how could we better help diverse startups? Now, I'm going to start with female founders, and I don't know if you know this or not, but female founders are actually 15% more profitable than their male colleagues, but they're 40% less likely to get funding. And so at Amazon, my team set up a Build Her event. It was only for female founders. And we really emphasized a lot of the funding mechanisms, given the profitability was such a high area for most of the startups. We really wanted to hone in on that funding aspect. So we brought in VCs that we work with, private equity that we work with to talk about that funding. Really embracing, again, that diversity, inclusion, and in particular, equity. We wanted to try to get equity in that funding. In addition to this focus on female founders, we also have been supporting a group called Hallison. And they're led by Kate Goodhall, who is an amazing and incredible woman. We just actually did a Clubhouse session together. And what she has really done is, again, another female-founded focus group, but very much focused on startups based in Bahrain in the Middle East. As you're looking at startups and diversity, there is a diversity right now of female founders in the Middle East. It's rapidly growing. They're impacting the GDP. And this really helps to support founders for rapid growth in the future. And so AWS has partnered with Halcyon to help this next group of female founders in Bahrain really take that next step. And then last but not least, we've recently released 2 accelerators. And our space accelerator just really took off like a rocket ship, a pun intended there. We announced this with Seraphim. And the reason we felt like the space accelerator was so exciting is not only is it a 4-week program to help the startups focused on space, the final frontier. We provided technology assistance, but we partnered with Seraphim because they focus on the space industry. We've recently hired a space leader, Clint Crozier, who runs our space IBU. And there's mentoring and technical expertise that we provide here. Now, why is this in a diversity category? Because if we look at it, a lot of people expected the startups to apply to be from the US, when in reality, we touched 55 different countries. We had men and women founders. We also had Black, Brown, military, veteran-owned founders that came together. So the Accelerator really attracted that diversity of talent. Now, if you haven't seen my LinkedIn page, we just announced a clean energy accelerator as well. We haven't received any applications for that, of course, because we just announced it. But we really would love anybody's participation in either our space accelerator or our clean energy accelerator as well, attracting that diverse talent. So far you've seen how we leverage diversity, inclusion, and equity inside of Amazon. Some of the work that we're doing with startups, which I know is really interesting and is a superpower of TiE as well. Now I want to move on to some of the external partnerships, and I've just chosen one. I am the chairman of the board of Girls in Tech, and Amazon Services has recently formed a tight partnership with Girls in Tech. And why did we do that? Well, one of the things that we found was that we need a stronger pipeline going into STEM education. And Girls in Tech has Python classes for that next generation that all of us one day will be hiring. We also sponsored their hackathon. And this in particular, we sponsored a hackathon for IoT, or Internet of Things. And so we as Amazon also sponsor other groups, Girls in Tech in particular, because they touch that college age, plus to 2 or 3 jobs afterwards. We also felt that this was an amazing outreach as well. Girls in Tech is also in 55 different countries. And so that diversity, again, comes in from geographic region as well. But now the last one I really want to talk to you about, because we're real excited. We believe, unless anyone knows better, we believe that our Think Big for Small Business is the first diversity-based program for partners, not for customers, but for partners. This actually came out of a working backwards idea from one of my folks in Singapore. So it was really driven outside the US. And the whole premise is that countries and governments and cities and companies value diverse partners, diverse companies that can come in and help their businesses out with innovation. But there's no designation and no way to provide some of that extra support for these minority partners, whether they're Black or Brown, an ethnic minority, women, LGBTQ, or a veteran. And so we sought out to create the first program called Think Big for Small Business to really showcase what we were doing around diversity. And it's really valuable to know that diversity is not just present with a focus in the US. I think many of you know that in the government in the US will require that certain number of diversity firms participate in different government contracts. But it's not just in the US, it's also in Canada, in Latin America, in Europe, in the Middle East, as well as Asia Pacific, including India. And so diversity is not singularly defined. It's defined by region, in some cases by country. And so one of the things I really loved about this program is that it really goes into this country by country. So the program itself, to support these minority-owned businesses, really provided 3 major benefits. One is access to our Amazon tiering requirements, in particular for those who are at particular levels and can get that really driving forward. Small business partnerships as well as competencies as well. So we help on all 3 of these different levels. And as we're looking at this, stories, one of my favorite quotes is, "Tell me the facts and I'll learn. Tell me the truth and I'll believe. But tell me a story and it'll live in my heart forever." So I'd like to close out with just a couple of stories from these partners. So one is from a partner in South Africa who's used the Think Big for Small Business program. And this is for South Africa. They have the Black Economic Empowerment. And he used the program really around the technology side to really get a benefit. This is the partner, Arvin from MFT. We also had a partner here in the United States, DLZP, who happens to be both a female founder as well as a minority-owned founder. And she really used the program to help her around go to market. I love her story because she's doing a lot of migrations, and she is just an amazingly talented woman and minority who is really changing the game in the cloud. Another story is from Cloud Prime in South Korea. And I love this example because some of the small government projects in South Korea require smaller businesses. And so he used this to get his staff trained up on Amazon Web Services. And then, of course, we also have our TBSB story, Think Big for Small Business story, from the vice chair of the U.S. Black Chambers of Commerce, who also happens to be the CEO of Enlightened. He really leveraged this program on two fronts, one for the Black members in the United States, but also for his own company and accelerating his go-to-market. So I hope that this really shed some light on what we do as Amazon Web Services from a perspective of helping with inclusion, diversity, and equity. I really thank you guys for your time today. If you have any questions, please either tweet me or let me know how I could help you as well. And thank you so much for the time and what we're seeing today. Thank you.
Sandy, thank you so much for joining us at the Diversity and Inclusion panel at TiEcon 2021. You are an inspiration in your own right. And from listening to all the programs that AWS and Amazon is putting together with respect to, helping the cause for diversity and inclusion, Amazon is also, right up there in terms of leading the path. So thank you again. Really appreciate your time today. And
thank you so much.